Hi, I'm Jason Schoeneberger, a senior researcher with REL Mid-Atlantic serving Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Washington, D.C. One of my roles with the REL is to help coordinate cross-REL working groups and collaboration initiatives, like this video. The REL program was authorized in 1965 with three main goals. 1. Conducting applied research studies of high quality that are aligned with regional priorities. 2. Providing analytical technical assistance to the states, districts, and schools to use their current data systems for decision-making and policy formulation. 3. Sharing REL work with the education community through conference presentations, webinar trainings, and publications. The current 5-year REL contracts began in 2012, supporting the 10 regions illustrated in the map seen here. RELs accomplish the work aligned with the three main goals by partnering with educators to create research alliances that address each region's most pressing needs. There are currently more than 70 research alliances across the REL program. REL staff engage and support practitioners, policymakers, and researchers by meeting with state educational agencies and their representatives, attending and presenting at state meetings and conferences, attending and presenting at national meetings such as the American Educational Research Association and the Association for Education Finance and Policy conferences, and by organizing and participating in discussions and workshops throughout their regions. This video is going to feature REL work conducted with research alliances related to educator effectiveness. Initiatives like Race to the Top, studies by the National Council for Teacher Quality, and proposed Title II changes are evidence of nationwide concern over educator quality. As this map shows, each of the RELs have research alliances and working groups focused on educator effectiveness. REL staff support educator effectiveness research alliances in various ways, including piloting and formatively evaluating new teacher effectiveness measures and systems, helping policymakers adjust those systems based on evidence, and by helping to keep the work of alliances continuously improving. In their presentations, my colleagues are going to share projects that have a number of themes in common. They'll highlight the structure of their research alliances and the use of research agendas as a means for providing technical support and conducting research. In addition, they will illustrate how collaborating with research alliances and stakeholders leads to improved efficiency and higher quality research products. Finally, they'll share how their educator effectiveness projects have supported stakeholder needs. The REL program supports cross-REL working groups made up of researchers from each REL as a way to keep each other informed about work going on in other regions, as a method for sharing ideas or problem solving, and for generating joint dissemination products like this one. Members of the Cross-REL Educator Effectiveness Working Group have collaborated on this dissemination effort to share with you how RELs engage in research partnerships with their stakeholders. At the conclusion, there will be a brief overview of all the video segments and a testimonial provided by an Educator Effectiveness Research Alliance member from REL Midwest, as well as REL contact information for further questions. Let's begin with REL Central Researcher Stephen Meyer, sharing his experiences supporting evaluation of teacher preparation programs through a multi-state research alliance.
Thanks, Jason. I'm Steve Meyer. I work with the Educator Effectiveness Research Alliance at REL Central at Marzano Research, serving Colorado, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming. My colleagues who work with me on the alliance are listed here. The Educator Effectiveness Research Alliance includes a group of about 250 educators. Members include state education agency and district level staff, college and university faculty, administrators of teacher preparation programs, researchers, and others from the 7 states that are included in REL Central. The Alliance focuses on 4 topics along the continuum of the teaching profession: teacher preparation, professional development, teacher feedback in the context of evaluation systems, and teacher mentoring. We have several projects underway in these areas, and I'm going to focus on some of our work in teacher preparation. In REL Central states and throughout the nation, there's been a recent focus on accountability in teacher preparation. Entities with oversight for teacher preparation, such as the programs that prepare teachers, state agencies that oversee those programs, and professional organizations that serve teacher preparation providers have been exploring new ways to examine outcomes of programs. There's also been strong interest in furthering the limited research base to support decisions that help promote best practice. REL Central has a range of research and technical assistance projects designed to support these priorities, including collaborative research with states, targeted technical assistance projects, and a webinar series focused on research and evaluation in teacher preparation. I'm going to briefly describe one of the Alliance projects. This study focused on the approaches that states use to evaluate teacher preparation programs. In discussions with Alliance members, we discovered that many were considering new approaches for evaluating programs, but that they had little information about particular approaches to pursue. In response, this study was designed to help states learn from one another and facilitate collaborative efforts. The study documents ways that evaluation was being conducted by states in the central region and changes that were planned or underway. Information was collected through a review of documents and through interviews with state education agency staff who had primary responsibility for overseeing these programs. The report from the study, which you can see here, is designed for state and district education leaders and policymakers, teacher preparation program administrators and faculty, and others with an interest in teacher preparation program evaluation. The report provides background information about teacher preparation in the region, including the number of candidates served through traditional and alternative programs, and the entities that evaluate and approve programs in each state. The full report is available for free at the IES website. And next I'll talk briefly about some of the findings that it includes. First, the report summarizes the approaches states use to evaluate teacher preparation programs as of late 2013, when data for the study were collected. All states had procedures for initial approval and subsequent reauthorization of teacher preparation programs. These procedures took place every 5 to 7 years and focused primarily on a review process that included review of documents prepared by the program and site visits. Across states, the evaluations tended to focus on the design and implementation of programs, making sure that required components were in place, for example. And one state, Missouri, was just beginning to implement an annual evaluation process with a focus on program outcomes. And here's a summary of the changes that states had planned for evaluation of these programs. Although, as I mentioned, most state evaluation approaches focused on program design and implementation, most were also implementing changes or planning changes to focus on the performance of program graduates. 4 states were developing common statewide data collection tools to facilitate this sort of evaluation. These tools are described in the report and include assessments of content knowledge, work habits, and performance of pre-service teacher candidates, as well as surveys of recent program graduates. 2 states were exploring new approaches for reporting evaluation findings, and 1 state was making investments in data systems to support evaluation of these programs based on the teaching effectiveness of its graduates. So how have these findings been used? We have a few examples. Alliance members who are administrators at teacher preparation programs have mentioned that the report has helped them to better understand state evaluation efforts and the context in which changes to evaluation are taking place. Also, descriptions of evaluation activities have prompted state administrators to seek information about activities in other states. For example, state administrators have requested additional information about statewide survey data collection tools and state efforts to develop data systems. In addition to dissemination among Alliance members, information about the study and its findings has been shared with the Council for Accreditation of Educator Preparation, or CAPE, which offers national program accreditation. The approach that this study used aligns with CAPE's own efforts to assess the types of outcome data that are collected across states, so REL Central and CAPE have shared what we've learned through these related efforts. States and program administrators in the REL Central states and beyond are particularly interested in identifying new measures of program outcomes, so that's one aspect of the report that has been of interest. For example, the Education Commission of States contacted REL Central on behalf of a state legislator about the report's mention of district efforts to evaluate alternative certification programs. Finally, the U.S. Department of Education recently proposed new regulations for state reporting of teacher preparation program outcomes. To prepare for the possibility of these taking effect, REL Central has been collaborating with REL researchers in other regions to use aspects of this study as a basis for assessing the capacity of states to respond to these new requirements. The ultimate goal of all this work is to build the capacity of states and others to collect, analyze, and report these new types of data to support meaningful evaluation of teacher preparation programs. We turn next to the work of our colleagues with REL Northeast and Islands at the Education Development Center, who will discuss their experiences with Research Alliance work in New Hampshire focused on educator evaluations.
I'm Julie Riordan, the Director of Research for REL Northeast and Islands. I'm here today with Dr. Natalie Lasarino-Paquette, a Senior Researcher at REL Northeast and Islands. The purpose of the Northeast Educator Effectiveness Research Alliance, or NEERA, is to provide research support to states and districts regarding their educator evaluation systems, as well as to build state and district capacity to evaluate their own systems. Early on in the development of the Alliance members created a 5-year research agenda. This agenda is available on the REL Northeast and Islands website. It identifies 3 high-priority topics for its research agenda. The first is educator evaluation system processes and measures. The second topic is the relationship between evaluation systems, teacher professional development, and teacher practice. And finally, the topic addressed by the study described in this video, implementation of educator evaluation systems. The New Hampshire Department of Education participated in the Alliance meetings to develop the research agenda and was interested in collaborating with REL Northeast and Islands to study the implementation of new educator evaluation systems that their School Improvement Grant schools, or SIG schools, were developing. Next, we'll share the research questions of this study. These questions were developed collaboratively with the New Hampshire Department of Education leadership team and Alliance members from NEERA during a series of in-person and virtual meetings to ensure the study would be relevant and of interest to them. We also wanted it to result in actionable information for the state and for districts and schools. As an example of a specific question from the state, officials of the department were particularly interested in whether school professional climate was a factor affecting implementation of new educator evaluation systems. To conduct the study, we used 3 sources of data. The first was administrative documents. This included school and district plans to redesign their evaluation systems to align with the state's new evaluation framework. The second were surveys of both evaluators and teachers. Finally, we conducted interviews with a sample of teachers, principals, and district administrators. The collaboration with the New Hampshire Department of Education and with NEERA led to notable contributions by stakeholders to the goals and the design of the study. This included the refinement of research questions, assisting with the recruitment of participants, for example, for interviews, and the development and administration of survey instruments to address the research questions of the study. I am now going to turn it over to Natalie Lasarino-Paquette to describe the study's key findings. Natalie?
Thank you, Julie. In terms of key findings, we found that district fidelity of implementation, as measured by the percentage of teachers who reported experiencing each required feature of the evaluation system, such as student learning objectives or walkthroughs, ranged from moderate to high. In terms of the factors that influenced implementation of these new systems, 5 key factors were identified. First was capacity. Many evaluators and teachers reported that the evaluations took too much time and used too many resources. On the other hand, they reported that initial training helped evaluators feel prepared to evaluate teachers under the new requirements. In terms of student measures, the introduction and design of student learning objectives proved more challenging than other features of the new evaluation system to implement. Most teachers and evaluators reported supporting the new evaluation systems, though to varying degrees. Teacher support was also positively associated with implementation fidelity. And finally, with regard to professional climate, teacher trust and influence was found to be positively associated with implementation fidelity. Julie described earlier how the New Hampshire Department of Education and the NEERA members were engaged in the planning of the study. Our engagement with them did not end there. We periodically engage with them throughout the whole study with data collection, analysis, and reporting. These meetings kept Alliance members and stakeholders engaged in the study. It also allowed them to provide insights as to why we might be seeing the results that we were seeing. They also helped us to make sense of the data. Alliance members and the department also participated in dissemination and knowledge utilization activities after the study was published. So how are findings being used? One of the things that we did was design a data use webinar in which district teams from the districts of the schools that were being studied met to review survey findings from their own districts. They had an opportunity to review the data and to discuss with their teams what they meant within their own individual contexts. We also met with Alliance members to discuss who needs to know about the study, what do they need to know, and how should they learn about it. In this way, the Alliance members helped us plan and engage in dissemination strategies. Finally, we met several times with the Commissioner of Education in New Hampshire and her senior staff to discuss ways that the department has used the findings and can continue to use the findings to shape their work, including changes that they've made to training and support for districts and schools implementing the new evaluation systems. Now, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Dr. Reino Makkonen of REL West at WestEd to discuss his study on supporting SEAs to pilot and formatively evaluate new teacher evaluation measures.
Hello, my name is Reino Makkonen, and I lead REL West Educator Effectiveness Research Alliance. REL West serves 4 states, Arizona, California, Nevada, and Utah. Today I'm going to talk briefly about how our alliance supports our state education agency colleagues in piloting and formative evaluation of teacher evaluation measures, work that's been carried out in close collaboration with our colleagues at the West Comprehensive Center. As many of you know, in 2010 and 2011, due in part to new federal initiatives, many states passed new teacher evaluation laws. In response, state education leaders from Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, and Utah asked the West Comprehensive Center at WestEd to convene a regional meeting where they could discuss their new laws and learn together. These meetings have continued quarterly. The 13th was in March 2015. The group was a natural fit for the type of alliance work promoted in the 2012 REL contract. Thus, our REL West Educator Effectiveness Alliance was born. Over the past 3 years, we've worked closely with our partners at the Arizona Department of Education, as well as the Utah State Office of Education, to help them pilot and formatively assess their new teacher measures as they rolled out in a set of volunteering school districts. Ultimately, the work is analytic technical assistance. We're trying to help the states adopt a thoughtful, evidence-based improvement cycle approach to implementation. In many ways, this has put REL researchers in a new role as facilitators of research discussions. It's very collaborative work. We have regular calls and meetings to map out our research agenda, define the questions of interest to the state, as well as the data and methods needed to address them. And then, after the data are collected by the states and analyzed by REL, we review the preliminary findings internally and talk about the implications together. Then we start the process again. The work thus has a formative continuous improvement focus. For this slide, I want to take a brief step back. These teacher evaluation reforms are complex, and studying them involves an array of research questions with different areas of focus, including policy analysis, measurement, and implementation, shown here on the Venn diagram. Our states wanted to answer questions in all 3 of these areas, yet each has its own research traditions and priorities. As noted on the previous slide, to date, our research projects have rested on 2 parallel tracks: qualitative studies and implementation, alongside exploratory empirical analyses of the properties of the new measures. We've leveraged our resources to study both implementation and measurement during initial pilot rollouts in states. We've lived in that lower shaded area of overlap. Our work has yielded a portfolio of interrelated research studies. 2 of our implementation-focused studies are listed here. A bit of background on the first study. In summer 2012, the Arizona Department of Education developed a specific multiple-measure teacher evaluation model that districts could choose to adopt. It was based on the more general state requirements approved by the state board the previous year. In fall 2012, 5 districts volunteered to test the state's model, and 5 other districts volunteered to share feedback about their local models, aligned with state law. Analyzing data from teacher surveys and focus groups with teachers and principals during the 2012-13 school year, REL West study described the first year of implementation, particularly respondents' perceptions of the accuracy and usefulness of the new evaluations. Our next study then sought to examine the 2013-14 pilot implementation of student learning objectives, or SLOs, which are classroom-specific targets for student achievement growth, as a new teacher evaluation approach in both Arizona and in Utah. The study specifically examined how teachers' SLO goals and end-of-year scores varied, as well as teachers' views on the SLO process from surveys. Like Arizona, Utah was examining SLOs as part of an overarching state mandate for districts to develop new multiple-measure teacher evaluation systems. The teachers and principals in our Arizona implementation study tended to view observation results as more credible than results derived from student test scores or from surveys of students or parents. And this was despite the fact that observation ratings clustered around particular scoring levels, with most rated effective, for example. We also found evidence that the implementation of standards-based observations, followed by timely debriefs and post-conferences, led to new dialogue about instruction around a common language among teachers and between teachers and principals and teachers and coaches. And it changed the type of feedback teachers are receiving, although principals may tend to perceive more improvements in this area than teachers did. At the same time, the implementation of face-to-face evaluation activities in support of observations and SLOs requires time and effort to schedule and complete the required reporting. Capacity issues may also arise as new technology is put into place to store and access evaluation data, for example, with glitches and learning curves being reported for some new systems. Teachers and principals in both Arizona and in Utah expressed concerns about inter-rater reliability, specifically noting how important it is that evaluators share common understandings and rigorous expectations within and across schools and districts. In the end, to help everyone involved understand, use, and benefit from new teacher evaluations, continued communication, training, and support is needed over a sustained period of time. As I mentioned earlier, the focus of our analytic technical assistance is continuous improvement, learning during implementation and making evidence-based adjustments. For our states, these adjustments have included policy changes, as well as additional state training and guidance materials like handbooks and resource guides, as well as hiring new State Department staff to support local implementation. Our state partners have also modified their evaluation models and measures, for example, changing cut scores or the ways that particular questions are worded. And in some cases, states are developing web portals for local districts to use to support the storage and management of evaluation data. Now I'm going to hand things off to my colleagues at REL Southeast at Florida State University, Latara Osborne-Lampkin.
Hello, I'm Dr. Latara Osborne-Lampkin, Associate in Research and Lead Researcher for the REL Southeast School Leadership Research Alliance. REL Southeast serves 6 states: Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, North Carolina, and South Carolina. Our work is focused on 4 areas identified as priorities in our region, which are improving literacy, improving low-performing schools, scaling up the implementation of rigorous academic standards, and improving charter school performance. Today I'm going to talk about how our alliance supports educational leader effectiveness in our region. Due in part to research that has linked the quality of school leadership to improve student outcomes, there has been an increased interest at the federal and state levels across the country in improving the quality of school leaders as a way to improve student achievement. In conducting needs sensing across the REL Southeast states, school leadership issues emerged as a primary interest of state and educational agencies and alliance members in several states. Guided by alliance members' interest in using school leadership as a lever to improve student achievement, the REL Southeast partnered with state and local agencies in Florida, Mississippi, and North Carolina. The purpose of this partnership was to help these states build their capacity to conduct and use research and to guide policy and practice aimed at improving leadership in their state schools. Programs targeted for reform included pre- and in-service professional development, school leadership certification exams, and evaluation systems. Today I will highlight the REL Southeast School Leadership Research Alliance and two projects in which the REL Southeast has supported state educational agencies and informed policy and practice around leadership effectiveness. The REL Southeast began with the Effective School Leaders Project, a project developed in response to the requests and identified needs of the Florida Department of Education. Three overarching questions that help the Florida Department of Education gain a better understanding of principal characteristics associated with student achievement, the characteristics of its leaders, and the characteristics of district-level training programs across the state. Each of the studies had multiple findings. In terms of the literature review, which examined connections between principal characteristics and student achievement, the only experimental study found that a principal talking one-on-one to students before a test increased their test scores. All other studies provided correlational and/or descriptive information about the relationships between student achievement and principal characteristics, behaviors, and leadership styles. The principal pool analysis found that Florida school leaders are less ethnically and racially diverse than the student population, but more diverse in the teaching workforce. The study also found that school leaders followed a variety of career paths. The third study, the analysis of the district-level training plans used to train and prepare candidates for school principal certification, revealed substantial variation among Florida's 67 district training programs. In addition to highlighting studies, the REL Southeast also provided technical support to guide the training, certification, and evaluation of school leaders. The support, for example, ranged from conducting an assessment of research used to develop Florida's principal leadership standards that guide university and district-based training programs to workshops designed to build state educational agency staff capacity to conduct research. In Mississippi, the REL Southeast provided technical assistance to build Mississippi Department of Education staff capacity to plan and conduct focus group interviews with district superintendents and principals. The information from these interviews were used to revise the Mississippi Principal Evaluation System to meet the needs of principals leading alternative schools. The REL Southeast also supported the development of data collection tools and provided technical guidance for planning and summarizing feedback from the principals and supervisors who were interviewed. The collective work of the REL Southeast and partner states has indeed informed state and district policies and practices surrounding pre-service and in-service professional development and professional development, certification, and evaluation for school leaders across the southeastern states and in varying contexts. Studies findings along with technical support activities were used to refine the Florida Educational Leadership Exam, also known as the FLELE. In addition, these reports will be used to provide technical guidance for the continued approval of district-level programs used to train and certify school leaders in each of Florida's 67 districts. The Florida Department of Education will also use the reports to support the development of legislation for the redesign of university and district-based principal training programs. The Mississippi Department of Education has used the findings from the technical support provided to modify its Mississippi Principal Evaluation System to develop a system to evaluate principals leading alternative schools. Now let's hear what our friends from REL Pacific have been doing. Dr. Herman, you're up next.
Hi, my name is Philip Herman, and I'm the director of REL Pacific. REL Pacific serves the state of Hawaii, the Republic of Palau, the Federated States of Micronesia, Guam, the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, the Republic of the Marshall Islands, and American Samoa. Our work is focused on 4 areas identified as priorities in our region, which are strengthening teacher effectiveness, engaging families and communities in education, ensuring college and career readiness, and optimizing data systems. I will focus my portion of this video on how REL Pacific supported the Palau Ministry of Education through the Palau Research Alliance and the REL Pacific study entitled Patterns and Results of the Practice Teacher Certification Examination in the Republic of Palau. Teacher effectiveness is one of the priorities for this research alliance. The membership includes leaders from the Ministry of Education, Palau Community College, the Ministry of Health, and the Ministry of Justice. These are the conditions REL Pacific worked to create in the Palau Alliance. These conditions of collective impact are discussed further in Kania and Kramer. Teacher certification is often required by government agencies to identify teachers who have satisfied education or skills requirements associated with effective teaching. All 50 states and the District of Columbia have certification requirements in place. Teacher effectiveness has been a long-standing concern in Palau. In an effort to address this issue, the Republic of Palau passed legislation in 2002 that established certification requirements that all teachers complete a teacher preparation program at Palau Community College or another institution of higher education and pass the National Teachers Examination Core Battery Test. The Praxis 1 is the current version of that teacher assessment. The Palau Research Alliance then asked REL Pacific to help explore the policy and practice implications of including the Praxis test in the teacher certification process. The Research Alliance wanted to understand how Palau teachers performed on this test before officially adopting it or looking for other alternatives. The Alliance arrived at 3 central research questions. How do Palau teachers perform on the Praxis 1? What content categories in the Praxis 1 show content area strengths and weaknesses of teachers from Palau? What are the relationships between teachers' demographic and professional characteristics and teacher performance on the Praxis tests of reading, writing, and math, and their associated content categories? A total of 214 of Palau's 233 teachers employed by the Ministry of Education participated in this study. In addition to the performance data, teacher demographic and professional characteristics were recorded through a survey. The survey data includes language spoken in the home, English proficiency, highest level of education, grade level taught, and years of teaching experience. The Palau Ministry of Education collected the survey data used in this study. The analysis of the relationship between the teacher demographics and the performance of the teachers on the Praxis tests is divided into 3 categories: demographics, educational background, and teaching experience. The study resulted in 4 main findings. Level of education attained was associated with a higher number of correct responses. Overall, teachers at each level of education performed better in reading than in writing or math. Those with better command of English performed better on the assessment. Teachers with less than 7 years of teaching experience answered slightly more questions correctly in reading, writing, and math than teachers with more experience. High school and upper elementary teachers answered more questions correctly than elementary teachers. REL Pacific will work with the Palau Research Alliance in Year 5 to help them review teacher certification requirements in light of the study's results, and use the results of the study to provide guidance to help teacher preparation programs in Palau better prepare teachers. The Alliance would also like additional assistance to develop a targeted program of professional growth opportunities for Palau teachers and set annual goals for the teacher workforce in Palau. REL Pacific looks forward to supporting the Palau Alliance to meet these goals. Let's go ahead and wrap things up with Jason from REL Mid-Atlantic.
So what have we learned? Educators nationwide at the national, state, and local levels are focused on issues of educator effectiveness. By partnering with the REL program to create research alliances that focus on this important issue, educators have access to high-quality research that informs educator effectiveness policy. We've also seen how collaboration with research alliances improves the services and REL program provides to their stakeholders. We learned about REL Central's study focused on the approaches that states use to evaluate and accredit teacher preparation programs. REL Northeast and Islands shared their work about implementation of and describing the features of new teacher and evaluation systems in New Hampshire School Improvement Grant schools. We've also learned how REL West engaged their stakeholders to develop a series of studies that describes the implementation of new teacher evaluation regulations, including an analysis of the technical properties of educator effectiveness measures. REL Southeast shared their efforts to describe principal characteristics associated with higher student achievement, characteristics of its leaders, and characteristics of district-level training programs in Florida. REL Southeast also provided technical assistance to help Mississippi collect information for revising the state principal evaluation system. Collectively, this work helped to increase the alignment of local professional development policy with state mandates. And REL Pacific shared their work with the Palau Ministry of Education to understand how teacher performance on the Praxis test is related to teacher demographic and professional characteristics. The Palau Ministry of Education plans to use this work to inform their teacher certification requirements, preparation programs, and professional development strategies. The common theme that cut across all of the efforts described by REL staff here was their effort to work with and alongside their stakeholders. Essentially, RELs are asking, what is the problem that you are facing, and what are the important contextual factors we need to be aware of? Once everyone understands the problem, REL staff can share their research and content expertise to develop a strategy to address the issues with stakeholders. RELs collaborate with regional educators in a number of ways, including helping to identify research alliance priorities, establish research agendas, meeting with key stakeholders, and attending public education meetings for purpose of need sensing and providing assistance crafting research questions. By working together, RELs ensure that the products and dissemination activities are aligned to meet the needs of local educators and policymakers. Providing answers to educators' most pressing questions results in a positive experience for researchers and policymakers. Let's hear from Greg Keith, a member of REL Midwest's Teacher Effectiveness Alliance, as he discusses his experience as an Alliance member.
Hello, my name is Greg Keith. I'm the Director of the Division of School Support at the Minnesota Department of Education. Our division supports school improvement and teacher effectiveness efforts, including our state's alternative pay program and teacher evaluation. I've been a member of the Teacher Effectiveness Alliance for almost 3 years. Until recently, Minnesota was the only state that participated in this alliance partnership. Our alliance completed studies on teacher mobility and on teacher supply and demand. The alliance also completed several projects that have supported Minnesota's implementation of teacher development and teacher evaluation initiatives. Participating in these projects not only helped us serve districts better, but also improved the quality of our research agenda here at the department. Recently, the Alliance reviewed our work and broadened our roles in 2 ways. We expanded our focus from just teacher effectiveness to include supporting the effectiveness of all educators. It became obvious that our state's needs included school and district leaders, as well as classroom teachers. Secondly, we made the decision to expand Alliance membership to include representatives from other states. Our Alliance members now represent 5 states: Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. These changes meant taking a new look at our collective research agenda and planning new work for the Alliance. Our focus turned from the needs of Minnesota to the needs of our region. To do this, we started by engaging in a structured brainstorming session in which each state shared their ongoing work supporting educator effectiveness, as well as the context in which the work was taking place. You know, it stood out to me how each of us were facing many of the same problems, and how many of us were doing the same work. It was reassuring to hear this from other states, states that might just be a car ride away, but that we so rarely get to take the time to share and collaborate with. With that being said, I learned just as much hearing how very different each state's context for the work were. So while the work we are doing is so similar, it's so very different sometimes. I'm sure that our facilitators often would sit back and wonder how the members could just go on sharing and asking question after question of each other. Our collaboration eventually led us to focus on the 3 areas you see at the top of this slide. For Minnesota, this has been a timely process, since these are 3 key areas of our ongoing work to improve student achievement and to eliminate achievement gaps between different groups of students. The Alliance provided us with a way to share with other states, and it provided us with a vehicle for prioritizing shared work with other states as a region. What has being a member of the Teacher Effectiveness Alliance meant to me? First, our partnership has resulted in a number of research projects that not only contributed to our work, but has also increased our capacity to actually do our work. We really learn from each other and from our partners. Second, our newly expanded alliance has given me opportunities to share with colleagues from other states. We share lessons learned. We share resources. Finally, membership has expanded my professional network. When I have a question or need a thought partner, I know that my alliance partners are just an email or a phone call away.
Thanks for watching our video on the REL program's work with our Educator Effectiveness Research Alliances. We hope you enjoyed learning more about how RELs work with regional stakeholders to provide technical assistance and engage in applied research. If you have any questions, we invite you to visit the REL program or individual REL websites for more information. This has been a presentation by the REL program.